Good afternoon, friends, ladies and gentlemen. We are all logging in for this webinar. Let's wait for a couple of minutes more before many other attendees are slowly joining us. Let's wait for them for a couple of minutes and then we can start this webinar. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having a nice, exciting, informative webinar from Husky Technologies today. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Ben Daniel, the Chief Editor of Packaging Middle East and Africa magazine. It is a pleasure to welcome all of you today for this webinar where Husky Technologies will share its perspective on sustainable molding operations. As you all know, Packaging MEA serves as the voice and pulse of the Middle East and Africa's packaging industry. We have been consistently delivering timely, relevant insights and showcasing the latest technologies and solutions shaping the packaging industry. And so today's session focuses on a subject that sits at the core of industry transformation: how to build sustainable molding operations that deliver both environmental responsibility and also commercial performance. So as a global leader in injection molding systems for PET preforms, we see Husky leading from the front. So they're recognized for their engineering precision and deep process enterprise, and also lifecycle support and digital integration. So Husky is also pioneering in its integration of sustainability considerations across machine design, tooling, and process control and digital platforms. It allows customers to translate sustainability objectives into practical operational outcomes. Today's webinar, which is on the topic how to build a more sustainable molding operation from strategy to success, will focus on four important areas: global trends and challenges shaping the CPG industry, circularity and recycling as the foundation of sustainable packaging, practical integration of RPET into packaging operations, and also real-world results from implemented solutions. So I'm pleased to welcome Philip PARUBETS, who's the General Manager for Northwest and Central Africa at Husky Technologies. Philip has been with Husky since 2006 and brings nearly 2 decades of experience across engineering and leadership roles in Canada and Singapore and China and Thailand, and now in the United Arab Emirates as well. His global exposure and strong technical background positions him well to share practical insights with us today on sustainable and high-performance molding operations. So, ladies and gentlemen, for your questions, you can address your questions at the end of this webinar, but please use the chat function on your dashboard that you see on your right side to submit your questions, and your questions will be answered. So without much ado, I'm delighted to hand over to Philip PARUBETS. Philip, over to you.
Thank you, Ben, for the kind introduction, and thank you to all of you attending this webinar this afternoon. And here's the agenda for the webinar today. So as all of you, if you turn on the news, whether you get the news from social media, whether you get it from Twitter or call it X, or you get it from other social media, whether you get it on TV, it becomes very apparent that the world is very dynamic, is changing in many ways very rapidly, especially in the last couple of years. We're seeing a lot of changes. And these changes are manifesting in impacts for the consumer packaged good industry. And we'll be spending the first section talking about how some of those impacts are manifesting in real ways for our industry. And one of those trends which continue and are strengthening is the trend about circularity and sustainability, and how recycling and the need for recycled content in your packaging and recycling is deepening and widening with further legislation around the world. We'll then talk about a more practical way, in a practical essence, how you integrate rPET into your packaging from an operational point of view. And in the last section, we'll talk about some real world examples of how we supported customers in looking at their factories, in looking at their operations, and how to successfully integrate recycled PET in their packaging. So this is the agenda for today. Let's dive in. We have a lot to discuss, and I hope you learn a lot from here and have questions to ask, which I'll be happy to answer at the end. So in our discussions with customers in the last couple of years, I'm getting two common themes I'm hearing from our customers. One is about managing profit margins, and the other is about sustainability, and especially managing your profits in an environment where sustainability is becoming more important, where there's legislation coming online mandating minimum recycling content, mandating that the producers are responsible for managing their packaging. So to balance out the needs of your profit margins in an environment where you need to meet sustainability targets becoming more challenging. And when we talk about managing profits, a lot of the feedback I get from customers, bottlers and converters, is that the purchasing power of consumers is going down or holding steady. It's very difficult to pass on price increases to the consumer. And this is an environment where you have the operating costs of your operations going up, and at the same time, you cannot pass on those increases onto your consumers. So many bottlers are looking for ways to manage those costs to make sure they don't pass on cost increases to the customer, or at the same time, some customers are looking ways to reduce costs to pass on to the consumer so they become more competitive. And how are they able to do this in an environment where the bottom line costs are going up, and especially in those countries where you have legislative requirements for recycled content in your packaging? And common themes we're hearing from a customer, for example, that they're seeing the energy costs are going up. They're seeing that labor costs are going up, or it's very difficult to manage, for example, the complexity of operations when it's very difficult to hire people. But these are two very common themes from an operational point of view, which making operations difficult and at the same time making the cost of operations going up. And the last theme, of course, is sustainability. Moving into a world where they need to manage recycled content and manage other sustainability features in their packaging. So let's talk the first one, which is about energy. And since the time of COVID, and especially in the last couple of years, given all the macro economic and macro geopolitical events around the world, we're seeing uniformly around the world that energy costs are going up. Whether it is in, for example, Europe, United States, but even in Africa, even in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world, we're seeing that year over year, energy costs continue to go up. And this is important because energy costs are an important contributor to the overall operating costs. When I'm talking about operating costs, I'm talking about the cost of goods sold, your variable cost, and your operating expenses, your fixed expenses. When you combine them together, energy costs, and include also the cost of depreciation, the cost of assets, your energy can be up to 5% of your overall cost. And of course, this varies from country to country, but this is a very significant portion of your cost. And managing your profits when your energy costs are going up is becoming quite an important priority to many of our customers. And another common feedback we're getting from our customers is the challenges of operating equipment, especially in an environment where many young people do not elect to go into the technical trades. They're going into the services, they're going to other types of businesses, but they're not electing to go into the technical trades. And we're really seeing a lot of this manifest in, for example, in Europe, in North America, in the Far East. And this is becoming a challenge for many of our customers because the pool of talented technical people to run their plant, to do the maintenance, to do the operations, is very difficult to find these people. And when you do find these people, it's somewhat difficult to retain them. They're in high demand, so sometimes they're looking around for opportunities elsewhere. So this is another important challenge that our customers face. From a Husky perspective, for example, we're even finding challenges in global mobility. It's becoming somewhat more difficult sometimes to move our people around from one country to another country just based on events around the world and visa requirements. So this is also introducing some challenges for finding and maintaining and having good quality people in your running your operations. And here, labor costs is also another important contributor to your overall operating costs. Here again, it depends on where you operate. Obviously, for operating in Europe or operating North America or Japan, etc., labor costs will be a higher percentage. But even in countries where traditional labor costs are not that high, we're even finding that those labor costs are going up, and especially looking for qualified people, they command a premium. So also here, labor cost is becoming an important concern for many of our customers. And lastly, the topic of sustainability remains a very important investment driver for many of our customers. Year over year, more and more of their investment decisions are being based on how do I make my operations more sustainable. And around the world, this is being driven by the fact that many countries are introducing legislation, whether it's in the form of EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility legislation, or DRS legislation, which is a deposit return schemes where you have a scheme where the bottles are returned back into the system and you recycle it. So more and more countries around the world are introducing such legislation, EPR and DRS. And inside this legislation, they're mandating the percentage of bottles that need to be recycled. So every bottle that's put to market, what percentage of those bottles need to come back into recycling? And number two, the recycled content in your packaging. When you get the bottle back, what percentage of the new bottles are made from recycled content? And we're seeing a lot of legislation around the world have already been passed. And this has resulted in, for those countries which have this legislation, a very significant increase in the recycled content in the packaging and the recycling rate of their packaging. And here I'm talking about North America, here I'm talking about South America, in Europe, in the Far East, and now we're seeing in Southeast Asia where more of this legislation is being passed. We're seeing the recycling rates have also increased. In India, a couple of years ago, they have also passed legislation requiring minimum content for the packaging as well as the recycling rates. And even in Africa, South Africa, we have legislation passed. In Kenya, we have legislation passed. As of yesterday, in fact, I was informed that Cameroon has also just passed legislation requiring producers to send to the market PET packaging with a minimum of 30% recycled content as of next year. So we're seeing a proliferation of legislation going around the world, and we're getting feedback from our customers how to manage this in their operations, whether you're a bottler, whether you're a converter, how to manage these requirements. We're seeing that these type of legislation, they are producing positive results in terms of increasing the number of recycled packaging in the market. So we expect that further legislation will continue to be adopted in other countries around the world. And we do expect this trend to continue in the future. At the core of sustainability is the concept of circularity. This is when you take a package, you design it for sustainability, you bring it to the market, you collect it, and you make another package after that using the same material that you present to the market. This is putting a value to the packaging such that it is collected and returned back to the recycler and relaunched back into the market. And we see time and time again that PET packaging is really the best and optimal material to maintain a circular economy. When you consider the following facts, number one, PET packaging is the lightest type of material you can use for your packaging. For example, you can have a 7-gram PET bottle containing 500 ml of product. There is no other type of packaging which is as efficient as PET in using minimum content, minimum raw material to package your product. Also, the carbon footprint of PET is very, very low when you compare to other types of packaging. For example, when you compare it to the cans, when you compare it to glass, when you compare the carbon footprint of PET versus those other materials, nothing beats PET. There are also other aspects which are very important for sustainability. For example, water consumption. In your operation, you consume a lot of water when you make your packaging. And whether this is glass or whether this is can or other types of material, a lot of water is required to produce those packaging. Whereas PET requires the lowest amount of water to produce the packaging. So this is another very sustainable aspect of PET. Another practical sense also is that when we talk about other types of rigid plastics, PET has the largest footprint of recyclers around the world. So when you talk about making or designing a sustainable packaging, PET is the right way to go because there is practical recyclers out there, often locally in your market. Uh, Frankly, I see in the countries that I operate, a lot of recycling operations are being set up, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it is in Africa, whether it's in Southeast Asia, now also making food grade uh, PET also in South Asia. Many recyclers are coming on board to supply the market with food grade PET. And all of this makes PET a very, very sustainable material to consider for your beverages. So when we talk about circularity and we talk about recyclability, these two are very important concepts as part of a larger sustainability story. In fact, circularity and recyclability are enablers of, for example, reducing your carbon footprint. We just talked about how using PET has the lowest carbon footprint of any packaging. Also, lightweight PET, which also reduces your carbon footprint. The story of sustainability also involves reducing your material content, reducing energy consumption, reducing water consumption. The story of sustainability also talks about zero waste and zero litter, making sure that you collect back the material after it gets introduced into the market and make sure it comes back afterward. So recycling and the circular economy is a core component of all of these other aspects of sustainability, the wider story of sustainability. And from a packaging perspective, from a PET packaging perspective, we're seeing that sustainability is manifesting into five themes in terms of package design, five major overall topics, I would say. Number one, of course, is having a recycled PET bottle, rPET bottle, up to 100%. This is, of course, the core of sustainability is to have that 100% recycled bottle. Number two is having a label-free bottle, which somewhat supports the idea of having a 100% recycled bottle. Number three, in terms of sustainability, is package lightweighting. The less your material weigh, the lower the carbon footprint of the material, and also the lower the raw material consumption. So package lightweighting is another way that we see sustainability manifest in packaging. A fourth way is tethered closures, which we'll talk about further, which is ensuring that the closure remains attached to the bottle. So we're seeing legislation being passed around the world to enforce that every plastic bottle comes included with a tethered closure that's attached to the bottle. But we're seeing other bottlers around the world who are voluntarily including tethered closures because they see that as an opportunity to enhance the brand equity, to show to the market their efforts to support sustainability. And lastly, very exciting is the last way I would say that we're seeing sustainability manifest in PET packaging is the introduction of the PET closure. So you can imagine here you have a PET bottle and you have a PET closure. This is truly a 100% recycled bottle, sustainable bottle. And especially if you marry the PET bottle with the PET closure and a label-free bottle, you really truly have a 100% recyclable bottle, which is a very, very sustainable solution. So let us talk about all of these 5 points in a little bit more in depth. So of course, the story starts here with rPET, where sustainability all began. And it was around 25 years ago that we start seeing rPET packaging really coming into the market in the initial phases. It started with bottled water at the beginning, and then later it went to carbonated soft drinks. And then now we're seeing it proliferate across all different types of category, whether it's liquid dairy, whether it's aseptic products, whether it is in detergents and home and personal care. We're seeing rPET being proliferated across all different types of consumer packaged good products. And up until today, the major challenges that we're seeing from the industry, what they're telling us is is the availability and reliability and cost of recycled PET packaging. This is kind of common feedback we're getting from many of our bottlers. And as a result, they have to look for many different sources of rPET pellets. And sometimes they have to accept what they consider lower quality rPET in order to be able to meet the requirements. And also the lower quality rPET can have an impact on their operations, whether it's from making preforms, whether it's blowing into the bottle performance. So these are challenges that we're hearing from the market in terms of running recycled PET. And ultimately, the real big feedback we're getting from them is the cost, right? They're seeing that the recycled PET up until today is more expensive, and they're trying to find ways how to manage those costs in their operating environment, especially when the profit margins are thin. You can't pass on those costs to the consumers. So how do they manage the rising cost of rPET in their operations? And we'll discuss about that a little bit later. So as a corollary to recycled PET packaging, we're seeing even in some cases, some legislation being passed in some countries mandating label-free packaging. And this is really being something pushed by the recyclers in many countries, by those who are advocating for designing plastic packaging for sustainability. The label-free packaging really does support the recyclers. And here, the reason is because oftentimes the labels, they incorporate some inks, they incorporate some glues, and these type of materials are acting as contaminants in the recycling process. And sometimes you see the discoloration of your bottle. Sometimes some of the volatiles that are present in the recycled PET are a result of having the labels. So we're seeing some innovation in the labels themselves. We're seeing them incorporate some non-volatile inks, or they're using less glue. But some brand owners opt, like for example, the ones you see here for Sprite, they're opting to remove the label altogether. And for example, in Korea, they have even mandated all water bottles are made using label-free packaging. A third manifestation of sustainability is lightweighting your packaging. And we're getting a lot of inquiries from our customers who are incorporating recycled PET, which is costing them more. They're asking us how can they reduce their operating costs. And one important way to reduce your operating cost is to reduce the cost of the resin that's going into the packaging. So they're looking very seriously at ways to lightweight the packaging. And there are two ways that they're looking at lightweighting the packaging. They're looking at reducing the material in the neck, for example, the cap and the neck of the bottle, but also to reduce the material in the body. So we're supporting our customers and looking at their PET preform portfolio and looking to find ways to be able to take out the material from the preform body, from the bottle body, or the preform neck enclosure to be able to reduce the cost of the packaging and somehow sponsor the cost of recycled PET. And there are also some side benefits of reducing the weight of your packaging. Number one, it reduces the raw material consumption, which is a sustainability target for a number of bottlers in the industry. It also supports a lower carbon footprint. And like I mentioned before, yes, really the primary driver for lightweighting is to reduce your operating costs. Number one, to offset the cost of recycled PET, but also to improve profitability of their operations, which is becoming quite a challenge for many operators in the industry. Just before I move on to the next slide, I think one important point I want to mention here is that one of the major trends we see in lightweighting is the move from PCO 1881. So this is your traditional neck enclosure that you have on carbonated soft drinks, and the move towards GMA 3040, which is a new standard for soft drink neck and enclosures. And we're seeing this really take off in Europe many years ago, and now taking off in North America. We're seeing it now taking off in many countries in Africa and sub-Saharan Africa. Many bottlers have converted to the new neck, which is called GMA 3040. And we're seeing this proliferate around the world. And like I mentioned before, lightweighting is a great way to reduce your operating expenses. When you take a look at your total operating cost to produce PET packaging, it's clear to see that resin is the most important, largest contributor to the cost of your packaging. It completely outstrips the cost of, for example, the investment in the equipment, the energy cost and labor cost that we talked about before. Really, if you're able to reduce the weight of your packaging in such a way to still maintain the bottle performance, the bottle blowability, the bottle shelf life, if you're able to remove just enough material while maintaining your bottle performance aspects, this is a topic that's very interesting for many of the bottlers in the industry, and they're coming to us looking for solutions. Another topic that's driving a lot of discussions in many parts of the world, beyond just those countries that are mandating tethered closures. So I'm sure most of the people on the line here is aware that in Europe there's a mandate for every bottle under 3 liters in size, you have to have a tethered closure that remains attached to the bottle after opening. But many brand owners beyond Europe are looking to increase or improve the brand equity by incorporating tethered closures. And here I'm talking about brand owners in Thailand, in the Philippines. Here, the example here for Nature Springs is an example from the Philippines. We got brand owners in Malaysia. They're all interested to incorporate a well-designed, a well-performing tethered closure to increase the brand equity. They see it as a positive message for the customers. They see it as a way to improve their sustainability achievements, and they're incorporating tethered closures. And interestingly enough, even in Africa, I just got notified yesterday that the country of Gabon, they will start requiring legislative requirement to have all bottlers making sure that all the closures as of next year are tethered in starting for next year. So we're seeing that even beyond the traditional markets for tethered closure, we're seeing this mandate going around the world. And in the countries where I operate, I see a lot of inquiries from bottlers and from converters to incorporate tethered closures. So this could be an excellent way to build brand equity if you have a very well designed and very high performing tethered closure. And here with this slide, I'm kind of combining two topics. I'm combining the topic of lightweighting and the topic of tethered closures here, combining to one topic here. Into one slide here, and you see some examples of tethered closures that we have. We have many different styles and feelings and consumer experience of tethered closures. Some have a clicking noise when you open them. Some have a locking feature, so there are different types of experience with tethered closures. Some brands prefer one type of experience over another, so we can talk with the brand owners to see which type of a consumer experience they're looking to launch, and we can help decide on the appropriate tethered closure. Also on this slide, I am showing the latest and greatest standards. I would say the most lightweight standards in across the different of categories. So for example, for bottled water, the lightest neck enclosure available in the market is called a 2522. This is widely deployed in North America. We're seeing deployment in Europe, in Australia, and now China, they have launched one. In India, they already have a 2522 in the market, and we're seeing a deployment and interest in other areas. For example, Saudi Arabia, we have multiple brands launching 2522, and in Nigeria, we have 2522, and we're getting interest from all corners to introduce 2522. And the real rationale here with a super lightweight neck enclosure is that those brand owners are looking for ways to minimize the cost of the packaging, to especially target those consumers with the minimum purchasing power. How to introduce a beverage to tackle those people who have the minimum consumer purchasing power. Next trend is, which I mentioned before in 2 slides ago, is the trend for CSD moving from the 1881, which if you take any CSD bottle today in the market and you take a look at the neck enclosure, I'm pretty sure most of them is 1881, but they're converting to the new trend, which is GMA 3040. We're seeing many countries in the region converting to GMA 3040. In sub-Saharan Africa, we're seeing many examples in East Africa, in Cameroon, Gabon, in the Middle East, in some places, they're already launching the GMB 3040. So this is really the big trend in terms of lightweighting the neck enclosure. And finally, for aseptic applications, we're seeing a shift from the traditional 38 millimeter down to the more lightweight 32 millimeter. And the last sustainability topic is a topic of PET closures. And this is a very exciting topic. We have been showing this in the previous shows that we've had. I think this year has been a pretty busy year in terms of shows at Husky. We had the Case Show, we had Drink Tech, and we had the Gulf Food. I'm pretty sure some of you out there must have attended those shows, and I hope you had a chance to see it us at Husky. And here we demonstrated think it was at Drink Tech, we had a miniature line capping these closures. This is really the next step in innovation. This is a 100% pure PET closure. So traditionally, we of course make most of our closures from HDPE material, a polyolefin, and we're converting over to PET. And PET closure on PET bottle, from an engineering point of view, is a very difficult challenge because you have a hard bottle and you have a hard closure. How to design it such that it's possible to cap, how to design it that it's possible to open. And this is what we worked on in our design for the PET closures. And we have now cap closure ready for water applications, for especially in particular for 29-25. And this brings many benefits for the industry. It simplifies recyclers, recycling operations for recyclers. It improves bale yields. For example, when all the tethered closures comes back and the closure comes back with the bottle, if you can switch over the HDPE closure with a PET closure, you're increasing the bale yield by up to 10%, and it's also of course reduce waste. So really, we see a lot of potential benefit for PET closures, and we get a lot of interest from the industry for this innovation. So in the previous slides, we talked about sustainability, and we talked about recycling, we talked about lightweighting, we talked about tether closures, we talked about PET closures, and now let us take a look at how to practically incorporate recycled PET into your packaging, how to incorporate recycled PET into your operations. And this is what we'll spend the next couple of slides talking about. So when we talk about incorporating recycled PET into your packaging, we're really talking about three main pillars. Number one, material selection and identifying the quality of your recycled PET. Number two, the technology and the processes that you're going to use to process your recycled PET. And lastly, after those two are set, how to properly monitor your process to make sure that the variability of rPET is being managed appropriately. The biggest challenge for running recycled PET is managing quality. And when we talk about managing quality for recycled PET, we're talking about managing variability. And as you well know, that when we talk about virgin PET, the variability from batch to batch, even from supplier to supplier, is quite minimal. We have in the industry running virgin PET for many decades, and the variability is not so great between batch to batch and from supplier to supplier to some degree. However, rPET, the story is completely different. We've seen that there is variability from supplier to supplier. Even with a good supplier, we're seeing that there's variability from batch to batch. And this is as a result, as a manifestation of the fact that throughout the year, we're getting different PET being recycled. We're getting the recyclers are getting different feedstock from the market. The recycling equipment itself has some variability associated with it. And all of these contribute to the fact that rPET itself has more variability. And what this means for producers is that you're going to get rPET of different sizes, you're getting rPET of different shapes for your pellets. Color variations are manifesting. We're seeing that some bottles are becoming a little bit yellow, a little bit brown. Contamination levels are increasing, whether it's like, let's say, black specks, or you're getting some additional volatiles in your PET. Crystallinity is sometimes impacted, where sometimes the rPET that's coming in the bales have lower crystallinity, and this is impacting the crystallinity of the recycled PET pellets. They have to somehow compensate this in the production of the pellets, and we're seeing the IV range of the pellets are increasing. So all of these contribute to increased variability, which is making managing the quality more challenging. And this is the feedback we're getting a lot from bottlers and converters, how to manage this variability from the PET preform production side and also from the bottling side. And to start, the first step is if you want to incorporate recycled PET into your packaging, the first very important and helpful step is understanding what type of material that you're using. And here, Husky is offering a new service. It's called an rPET grading service, where our customers are sending their samples of recycled PET to Husky. And what we will do with that PET, we will grade them according to specific metrics, like, for example, the size and the shape of the pellet. We will measure the color of the pellets, how much dust is being generated from them, the acid aldehyde levels of these pellets. We'll take a look at its crystallinity, which is important in the resin drying. We're going to take a look at the contamination of the pellets, also the IV variation, etc. And all of this is very helpful because with this knowledge, we can support the customer in setting the right process in your injection molding operation, whether it's the process in your resin dryer, whether it's the process in your extruder. With this knowledge, we can set the right process. And we can also support the customer in choosing the right type of equipment that they need, the right types of option features. So it really starts by understanding what type of material you're using. And many of our customers are availing of this new service to get a good quality of understanding of what type of rPET that they're using. So going beyond the material, after you have an understanding what type of material you have, if you want to successfully incorporate recycled PET into packaging, you need to bring the right tool to the job using the right technologies. And here, Husky has introduced in our latest HiPET 6E and HVP 6E platform, the industry-leading solution for running rPET up to 100%. And here we incorporated technologies and features specific for rPET at every stage of the injection molding process, whether it is at the resin drying stage, which is the melt preparation stage, whether it is the injection stage where we plasticize the plastic, whether it's specific technology already in the mold, and or whether it's technology in the monitoring of the preform afterwards. And every step of the way, we incorporate technologies. We're right sizing the injection unit, right sizing the resin dryer, designed a brand new screw, the high mix screw, to be able to melt and process rPET resin. Many different technologies to support our customers in running 100% recycled PET resin. One particular technology, which is where we're excited to announce, has already been industrialized at a number of sites, is our new DRV vacuum dryer. And this is a complete innovation of our traditional resin dryer. If you remember in the previous slide, I have a big hopper sitting in front of the machine. And the purpose of the hopper is to dry the resin before it enters into the extruder. This vacuum dryer takes that to a whole new level. The two principal differences between our old technology and this new technology here is that in the old technology, we're using hot forced air to dry the resin. Here we are using vacuum technology, which is the same type of principle that we see in many of the recycling technologies out there. We're using vacuum to dry the resin and to reduce or remove the humidity content from the pellets. And we're doing this in a batch format. Before it was a continuous format, and now this is done in a 4-stage batch process. And this is introducing many different benefits to managing rPET, in particular to managing rPET. Number one, this is reducing the maintenance requirements. It's reducing the energy consumption by around 25%. We're reducing the thermal degradation on the recycled PET because traditionally we had to supply hot forced air to dry the PET. Now we're using lower temperature vacuum, which is preserving the quality of the rPET better than what we have done in the past. And also another advantage, by virtue of the fact that this is a batch process, to change from one resin to another, historically we need 8 hours, and now we only need 2 hours to switch from one material to another. So we already have a couple of these systems already industrialized in the market, and especially for many of our customers who intend to run recycled PET, they're very excited to see this technology because one very interesting and one unique aspect of it is that it treats the rPET in a much more gentler way than our traditional technology. So the impact of the thermal degradation of the coloring will be less impacted by this technology than our previous technologies. And on the topic of energy consumption here, the 25% energy consumption savings compared to our historical technologies is being very well received by our customers who are especially sensitive about energy prices. And taking a step back from the equipment, we are also offering standard as on every system today, whether it's a PET system or whether a closure system, is our new, I wouldn't say even new anymore. We have our 2,000 systems hooked up around the world, is our Advantage Plus Elite program. And here, the purpose of this technology here, of this innovation here, is that your machines are connected to our systems 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where we have a program manager monitoring over 300 variables from your systems. And if any of those variables are fluctuating beyond a preset limit, we will call you directly, call your contact, whether it's your technical or your plant manager, and we'll inform them of the deviation and support them to find the right way to balance, to put the operations back to within specification. And this is becoming especially important for those operators who are using recycled PET, because as we discussed before, recycled PET introduces more variability. And this variability will manifest in your resin drying process. It will manifest in your injection process. It will manifest in your preform quality. And to have this monitoring, all those variable inputs will show that if you have some variation in your material coming in, we'll be able to detect that variation at multiple steps and inform our customers to support them in managing it. So we're seeing that, especially for RPET, the Advantage Plus Elite becomes very valuable. And it also has secondary benefits. So we talked earlier about labor. We talked about the challenge of getting the right people. Here we have a program manager and our strong technical people, whether they're sitting in Luxembourg, whether they're sitting in Shanghai, whether they're sitting in Bolton, they're working with your people to making sure that your operations are running as smooth as possible. Your team will be learning from our team. We'll be calling you once a week to give you a report. So your technical teams will grow with us as well. So you will get the learnings how to operate the machines. You will understand the right process parameters to operate the machines, what type of proper maintenance is required in the machine. So this is a great innovation in terms of supporting your local technical people. Also included in Advantage Plus Elite is our ProAct services. We're now standard for all the machines. We will come to your plant to do the maintenance of your equipment as part of the Advantage Plus Elite package. So here again, we're talking about supporting your local technical people in doing the proper maintenance of the machine and to learn how to do the proper maintenance. And one thing for us to support our customers in doing the maintenance, but also it's a great opportunity for the technical team to learn how to do it the proper way. And we keep our customers running 100%. And this is the idea behind having Advantage Plus Elite standard on all our equipment. And lastly, stepping beyond our services, this is another great service that many customers are quite interested in, is our factory planning services here. And here, for many of our customers, whether they're many years of experience or whether they're new to the industry, they are looking for our support to design the best-in-class operations. Because when you're running a best-in-class operations, when you're looking to reduce energy, when you're looking to reduce your labor requirements, you're looking to reduce your the flow of material goods around your factory, try to make it most efficient as possible. You try to reduce your utilities requirement. Having a properly designed factory is critical for that. And here Husky has many, many years of experience. We have a number of factory designers which have been working Husky for 3 decades or longer, and they're supporting our customers with designing their factories from the ground up. And here I'm talking about a greenfield factory from the ground up, from designing, understanding the customer requirements up until handing over the key. We have people who can support on factory planning. It starts with understanding your requirements. We look at the portfolio of preforms, what type of preforms you want to produce, what's your production quantities, and from there, if you have an existing factory, we'll audit your existing factory to see where your factory is benchmarked against the best in class, and we find opportunities for improvements. We'll give you a roadmap of ways you can improve it. And this has been especially useful for customers who are looking to incorporate recycled PET, because with recycled PET, you might need some different equipment. You might need to introduce, for example, a number of resin handling units. You might need to adjust processes, and the expertise we have at Husky to support our customers is very valuable to many of our customers. And here, let me just share a couple of examples here. This is a major bottler in Southern Europe, and they wanted to set up a new greenfield site for making preforms. And at the same time, they're also bringing in-house the recycling operation. So they want to have the recycling operation sitting next to the preform injection molding plant. And they came to us and said, look, this is what we want to do. We want to be able to produce X amount of recycled PET. And we want to have that recycled PET flow into the preform operations. How do we make the most efficient recycling plant with the lowest energy cost the lowest labor requirements. How do we make it as efficient as possible from an OEE perspective? And we support them step by step from understanding the requirements to designing the factory, identifying the location of all the pieces of equipment, identifying the material flows of raw materials and finished goods, the location of all the utilities, the cranes, the floor loadings, the ceiling heights, every aspect we give support to the customer in making sure they have a world-class operation, which which they are doing today. Another example of our factory planning services coming to support our customers. So this is a customer it's a major converter in Latin America, one of the largest converters that we have operating in Latin America. Their plant is a relatively large plant. They're operating for virgin resin. So this is one of the plants here. I think you see a picture on the right of a couple machines here. They have other plants as well. So this one here is particular for they want to run recycled PET here. And they asked us, look, okay, this is the condition of the plant. We're starting to run a recycled PET, and they had a lot of problems. They had problems where they had to increase cycle time to compensate for quality issues. They're having lost hours in production because they had issues with recycled PET. Their OEE went down. So they came to us and said, look, guys, Husky, could you please support us on how we can successfully incorporate recycled PET into your packaging? And what we did, we started with, at the beginning, we started with an audit of the material. They sent us the material. We audit the material. And from there, we understand the qualities of the materials. We went back, take a look at the processes that they ran in the machines to update the processes. And we also gave recommendations how to update their equipment. What kind of equipment do they need to run recycled PET, whether it's updating the resin drying system, whether it's updating the screw, whether it's adding downstream monitoring. All of those suggestions were provided to the customer, and they have updated their factory accordingly to improve OEE, to improve cycle time, and to reduce quality issues. And lastly, closer to home, so I'm based here in Dubai, in the Middle East. We also have a large converter, and they were looking to move from one factory to another. Their existing factory of 12 PET machines and 8 closure systems was running not in the most efficient way. And they're looking to build a new factory and say, look, Husky, we're moving all our equipment to a new factory. Could you please support us in designing the most state-of-the-art, most efficient factory possible, so we can improve our OEE, we can improve our output. And we supported them right from the beginning to the end. Here again, we started understanding the requirements and designing the right factory for optimized of the production flow of raw material goods and finished goods. And it resulted in significant improvements in the operating costs and also gave them options for future expansion. So here, let me summarize by going back to the beginning, where we're hearing from our customers, really, they're feeling a lot of challenges in terms of their operating costs, in terms of they're getting pressure from managing their profitability as top line revenue does not increase, or they can't pass on costs to their consumers. Or sometimes they have to find that they have to reduce the cost to the retail market in order to remain competitive, but the bottom line operating costs are going up, and the challenges running operations are going up here. And here I'm talking about energy cost, and here I'm talking about the challenges of maintaining good people to run a good operations. And here, customers are having these challenges at the same time trying to meet their sustainability goals, which are ever present and becoming more challenging as requirements increasing, as legislation is being enacted around the world, continue to be enacted. And so here, Husky is supporting in multiple ways, and from package development, also from equipment point of view, and finally from Advantage Plus Elite and factory planning here. We can really support the customer at a really high holistic level. And this concludes my my presentation, and I'd like to open up to questions if you have them, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Philip, thank you very much for that very insightful presentation. It was really something which you explained me earlier, didn't you, when we met at DrinkTech and also at K-Show. And it's really nice to see how the industry is also moving in the same direction, like as you've explained, sustainability is the name of the game, and everybody in this space are talking and moving into this journey of strategy to success when it comes to sustainability in PET, and especially RPET is really taking shape. It's no more being spoken, people are implementing it. And we have a lot of questions coming in, Philip, I must say this, and many of the questions are very interesting. Let's start with a couple of questions. And in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us and being part of this very interesting and insightful presentation. I would request you also, if you have any questions, to address those questions in the Q&A box, not on the chat box, on the Q&A tab. You can use that. But in the meantime, quickly, let's go into some of the important questions which I've got. Philip, the first question comes from Anil Gule. He's from Carrefour Majid Al Futtaim. He's the packaging development manager there. So he's asking this question: how do you see and evaluate food safety compliance and risk mitigation for recycled content in food contact packaging, considering that certain countries restrict its use, as noted in your presentation? Philip.
Yes, this is a good question. I would say that in many jurisdictions around the world, I can give you a personal example. For example, in Thailand, in the years when I operated there, of course, all the regulators in those countries, the first question that they ask is, okay, how do this material, how food contact safe it is, and example by example around the world. In a recycling operation after recycling operation, they're able to demonstrate that they're able to produce very high quality, very safe packaging in the industry. And we're having the top, I would say, the top regulators in Europe, in North America, in Japan, in Korea. Um, they're all approving food grade recycled PET into the packaging. And in the country where I was before in Thailand, also the same outcome had been made. So it is a learning curve, I would say. When countries are introducing recycled PET, the regulators start working with the recyclers. They start working with the local stakeholders in the industry. But step by step, we're seeing examples around the world that recycled PET is a very proven, very safe, sustainable solutions for our customers. And when you have, for example, bottlers in Japan, in Korea, in Europe, which have the high watermark benchmark in terms of safety, adopting recycled PET, you can be rest assured that it's a very safe packaging.
Right, thank you. Moving on, we have a question coming in from Imran Rahman from IR Group, Pakistan. He's asking, in Pakistan, there are certain companies that are producing PET. I understand it's PET, but unfortunately, we have yet to find the EPR or DRS. How can it be possible, and what role can Husky play in this important aspect? And he's also asking, is there a legislation coming in for using only European recyclates?
Okay, so two separate questions.
Yes.
Let me
Sorry,
handle
that's
the,
the first
the
one.
European recyclate. So this is a separate hot topic in Europe because a lot of the recyclers there are feeling the pressure of imported recycled material from outside. So I see that there's a possibility of legislation being enacted to protect the local recyclers there. I don't know which way that's going to go. But this is part of the larger discussion about trade around the world. So I guess PET is not immune to that. We're already seeing virgin PET being subject to rules and regulations, anti-dumping regulations on a lot of the resins from around the world into Europe and other countries. So it looks like recycled PET is not going to be any different from that. Which way that particular legislation goes, I don't know. But the other question about DRS and EPR legislation. Um, Let me highlight the example of let's say India is a good example here. They did not require any of this legislation in order to have between 80 to 90% of the PET recycled. And this is by virtue of the fact that there was already a very strong, full-grown recycling industry where you have people going around collecting this packaging and selling it. And the key here, the key driver here for recycling PET is identifying or understanding that PET has a value. Once you put a price tag to PET, for example, if I had give you a $5 Canadian note, it's made of plastic. But if I drop that $5 note on the ground, I can be rest assured that someone's going to pick it up. It's a piece of plastic, but it's understood to have value. Once any type of material, PET packaging included, it's understood to have a value, people will collect it and it will be returned to recyclers and they will process it. And we're seeing in some jurisdictions around the world, in South Asia, for example, where they didn't need to have an EPR or DRS. I mean, they're being implemented now, but before there was a very thriving recycling industry already in those countries. Now, for those countries where the economics of people collecting the bottles, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't drive itself, you need legislation. And this is what we're seeing, for example, in Europe. The legislation is really forcing the industry to move forward, to invest. It's for, and not just the industry, but forcing municipalities to collect the material and so on and so forth. So in Australia, they went the way of DRS schemes. In Vietnam, it's extended producer responsibility legislation being enacted. In Indonesia, they're looking at a combination of both, for example. In the Middle East, we're looking at some variant of that. In some countries in Africa, for example, Cameroon, they're looking at a blanket statement, 30% recycled content in the packaging. So there are different ways to get there. I see that legislation is probably the strongest way to get there by enforcing legislation and or by enacting legislation and enforcing it. Then all the stakeholders, industry knows, okay, the legislation is in place. Is the right time to invest into technologies, whether you're preform converter, whether you're a butler, whether you're recycling operations. Once the legislation is in place, I see that as really as the catalyst. I see that really driving the train in terms of introducing a lot of investments into the market. So how to drive that forward in particular countries, I would bring it to the local legislators, especially for, we've seen some cases, I would say in some cases in Africa, where we have local recycled PET producers. They're going to the government and saying, look, we have local supply of recycled PET in the market today. And it serves everyone well. It serves our country well, especially when you have a lot of these countries where a lot of you have plastic litter and marine litter. We have a homegrown solution of recycled PET, homegrown in the country. Government, could you please support us in enacting legislation? We're seeing some of our customers, they're discussing with the government to enact such legislation. Sorry, that's a long-winded answer. I answered your question there.
Absolutely. Thank you. We have many questions coming in. Let's do it quickly because we have many questions coming in. This question is from Prashant Lohade from Emirates Biotech, Dubai. So it's a very interesting question. How is the PET cap performance compared to polyolefin caps? I assume a new mold would be required.
From the high cap machine, which is a closure machine, you'll need to have a new mold and you'll need to have a new screw and some other changes, but you can use your existing high cap machine by and large to produce a PET closure. I didn't have a chance to explain how we designed our PET closure, but this is where the revolution is. The challenge of making the PET closure is that you're balancing two needs. You want to make sure that it's easy to cap the closure because it's hard material. Hard material makes it difficult to cap and not too difficult to open. What we've done is we completely redesigned the tamper evident band of our closure to result in a fact that a closure which is even easier to cap than a standard closure and has the same opening torque performance as similar opening torque performance as a standard polyolefin closure. Fortunately, I don't have time to present this here in the meeting. I only have 40 minutes here. But if you can click on the QR code, which I've shown here, and ask about a PET closure, we'll be happy to give you more information about how that works. We took what was originally a contradiction and made it into an advantage. Really, it's the easiest closure to cap. If you see the visualization that we have, you'll become to understand why. And from the opening torque is the same as a standard polyolefin closure.
Right. Thank you. Moving on, Srinivasa Rao is asking this question regarding PET caps. Since PET is rigid, did you get required tamper evidence feature in these caps? And any changes adopted in the capping lines? Any implementations in the UAE and GCC? He's asking.
Yes. So the core of the innovation is in the redesign of our tamper evident band. So the questioner really hit the nail on the head. This is where the challenge lies, is the tamper evident band. And in summary, in one sentence, what we've done is there is going to be a separate feature added to the end of the filling line after the capper, which is going to be a laser feature, which will heat up the tamper evident band and cause the tamper evident band to like a shrink wrap grab onto the pilfer proof, and that's where the tamper evidence comes into play. So you do need an additional piece of equipment at the end of the filling line. As of right now, there are no in the Middle East, however, there are no, I would say, industrialized examples. Other parts of the world, we're working with bottlers on implementing this solution.
All right. All right. Thank you, Phil. And this question is from Konain Shahidi from Almarai, who's a senior procurement manager there. What lessons can brands learn when scaling a successful sustainable molding solution from one plant or region to another, especially from a global footprint standpoint?
Well, what lessons? This is a very good question. What lessons they can learn from scaling from a local?
Yeah.
So uh, I would say the main lesson that I would convey to our customers is I see a lot of operators, they go it alone. They when they make a change like incorporating recycled PT, this is a very challenging aspect that is multifaceted, that can hit on every single step of your operations. So seek out support, whether Husky's here to support, but also the bottlers are here to support all the different aspects of your operations. They could be able to support you in managing this significant change. Recycled PET introduces additional variability. How to manage this variability? Come talk to us. We have a lot of support. I'm sure if you talk to the other, for the blowing and filling lines, and you ask them, look, I want you to do this type of RPET, like this type of percentages. What do you recommend? What type of experiences have you seen around the world that can help us do a better job? Um, your experience at one plant might be one type of experience, but your experience somewhere else could be a completely different experience. So to get the whole big picture, I would really suggest come talk to us and come talk to all the other stakeholders. I'm sure the industry will be very helpful to try to get you to succeed because sustainability is win-win for everybody. And we look forward to your success to become a successful, sustainable operation.
Thank you. A couple more questions, Phil, very quickly. This is a very interesting question. In fact, it's my question also. It's asked by Yusuf Al Manani. So he's asking this wonderful question. Global RPET targets are set towards 2030. Yet in reality, we are already seeing nearly a 200% increase in RPET demand over the last 3 years. This rapid acceleration has led to significant variability in RPET quality across the market. From Husky's perspective, how is your technology evolving to protect preform quality and production stability when converters are forced to process inconsistent RPET feedstock far earlier than originally planned?
Thank you for the very comprehensive question. This is a great question. Um, I would say that, look, from Husky's perspective, we understand that RPET comes with more variability. And, at the end of the day, you're dealing with the material that you have. And many of our producers, they are, for purposes of managing the cost, they're looking and managing supply. As the questioner asked, that it's sometimes difficult to even source the RPET locally. You need to look elsewhere for the recycled PET supply. And what Husky is doing is we're taking a very holistic approach of managing recycled PET. How can we minimize the variability from the entire spectrum from start to end? And this is looking at analyzing the material. This is looking at analyzing the resin preparation, the melt preparation, the molding operations with self-cleaning mold, the preform vision inspection system, introducing a brand new screw, the Hymex screw, updating the resin auxiliaries. For example, make sure you have the right sized hopper, introducing a cyclone filter, introducing the oil condenser, including the um, vacuum dryer, and also from Advantage Plus Lead to monitor it from downstream end, and also from a factory planning perspective. So at the end of the day, Husky is taking a whole holistic view about how to handle and manage recycled PET in your packaging. We have seen back in my days from engineering when I was working with our test room guys 20 years ago, we start seeing the interest of recycled PET. We have over 2 or 3 decades of experience in seeing recycled PET in our operations, and we accumulate all the challenges from our own internal test room, plus all the internal challenges that we're seeing from our customers coming back with feedback about, okay, we have black specks, we have discoloration, we have blown bottles in the industry. We've gotten this feedback for many, many decades, and we incorporate that all in our learnings, how to uh, design the right equipment, how to manage the right processes, how to set the right processes, having specialists on board. Husky has specialists to run RPET in our processes. And of course, we have Advantage Plus Elite Monitoring to bring everything together here. So
Right.
we really try to do a full end-to-end solution to support our customers running recycled PET.
Right. Thanks, Phil. Phil, I think we'll take one last question. We're running out of time, but still, I think it's a very interesting question, which would be nice if you can address this. What best practices would you recommend for processors who are transitioning from virgin PET to higher rPET content? Syed from K Group is asking this question.
My suggestion here in a quick shell, in one sentence, is come talk to us. Give us what are your plans? How much rPET you want to incorporate? Send us your rPET. Let us grade your rPET. Um, what type of packaging are you producing? Water, CSD. You need to have an understanding of what kind of quality specifications you want to have. Are you willing to make some compromises here or there? Where are you getting your resin feedstock from? With all of this knowledge, we can give you a comprehensive view of what are the risks, what are the benefits, what are the potential investment needs, to design your packaging and to run your operations. My suggestion is come talk to us.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Phil, for this wonderful webinar and insights that you shared with us and all the answers. We have a few more questions also. And ladies and gentlemen, your questions will be answered by Husky. Kindly use, as Phil mentioned, this questions and next steps QR code that you find on the screen now. We request you to use this and scan, and you can send your questions, and please stay in touch with Husky directly with them. Yeah, and once again, thank you, Phil, for this wonderful webinar, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking your time and being with us this evening and making this evening a very profitable one for all of us. So we'll also share all the details of this webinar in the next edition of the magazine as a small report. You can also get more details from that as well. Once again, thank you very much, everybody, and looking forward to seeing you for more such insightful presentations from Husky and from the industry in 2026, and wishing you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and Blessed New Year for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.